You raise the spray bottle toward a zucchini blossom. The leaves are green, the plant looks healthy. Yellow flowers are drying on the soil anyway. I stood in that same spot for 2 Augusts, convinced I was looking at disease. And I kept treating a problem the bottle could never fix. That is the kind of mistake this video is about, not the obvious ones. The quiet ones that hide inside a garden that still looks fine, right up until the harvest starts shrinking. I found 7 of them, and every one can be corrected without turning your backyard into a second job. One of those mistakes fooled me into spraying for nothing. The plant was not sick. The warning sign was coming from somewhere else entirely. I wish someone had warned me sooner. Mistake number 1. The cracked fruit you left alone. It invites rot into every fruit next to it. You come back from 3 dry days out of town, it finally rains, and half your tomatoes have split wide open at the shoulder. That's mistake number 1, and it's not the splitting itself, it's what you do after. Here's what's actually happening under that skin. Your plant spent those 3 dry days pulling whatever moisture it could out of parched soil. Roots working overtime just to keep the fruit going. Then the rain hits, and the roots drink it in fast, faster than the skin can stretch to hold it. The inside swells, the outside can't keep up, it splits. That's the part most people miss. The crack itself isn't the real damage. Leave that tomato sitting on the vine or on the ground for 2 or 3 days, and it turns into an open door. Rot moves in fast. Ants find the sugar underneath within hours. Wasps show up not far behind them. Fruit pressed against a leaking, rotting tomato is at greater risk, so pull the bad one the same day. Jetstar has good crack resistance, but even it can split after a hard enough dry-to-wet swing. Crack-resistant does not mean crack-proof, but even a crack-resistant plant can still split if the swing is extreme enough. Nothing out there is immune to a hard enough shift between bone-dry and soaked. So here's what actually works. Pick up every split tomato the same day you spot it. Don't leave it for tomorrow morning. If you can see a big rain coming after a dry stretch, walk the rows first and harvest anything close to ripe before the water gets there. That is the part that costs you fruit if you skip it. A cracked tomato isn't a lost tomato. A cracked tomato left on the ground for 3 days is. Mistake number 2. Pruning in the middle of a heat wave. It strips the fuel your tree needs for winter. If you've got pruners out right now, taking a peach tree down hard in the middle of a heat wave, put them away for a minute. The tree is doing one job right now, banking energy for winter. Your tree is using those leaves right now to build carbohydrate stores for winter. Strip off a chunk of canopy in August heat, and you cut its food supply and expose bare wood to full sun in the same move. Both hit at once, right when it needs reserves the most. I used to think timing barely mattered here. It matters more than almost anything else with stone fruit. Save the big structural cuts for winter, when the tree is dormant. If you need to clean up a peach or plum after harvest, keep it light. Crossing branches, anything blocking the center, do it within 2 or 3 weeks of your last picking, skipping the hottest part of the day. This one is for stone fruit specifically: peach, plum, apricot. Apples and pears give you more room to move. Winter is for the big cuts. August is for leaving the tree alone. Mistake number 3. The organza bag that failed. It stops birds, not squirrels. I spent an entire Saturday bagging every fig on that tree in organza. 2 weeks later, not one bag was still there. Not torn, not slipped off, gone. Every branch stripped bare, like the tree had never worn a bag at all. I stood there counting empty twist ties, trying to figure out where an entire Saturday of work had disappeared to overnight. Everyone talks about birds when they reach for organza. The real problem on a lot of properties isn't birds at all. It's squirrels, and cloth was never built to stop them. What's going on underneath is a simple mismatch. A bird can only peck at something. And organza is woven tight enough to shrug that off without much trouble, but your squirrel doesn't just bite. It bites and pulls with both front paws working at once, treating the fabric like a puzzle it's determined to solve. Thin cloth stands no chance against that, and neither does the fruit you were trying to protect. So if squirrels are working your yard, skip the fabric and reach for hardware cloth instead. Two different pests. I had one fix, built for only one of them. If squirrels are working your yard, hardware cloth is the fix, not fabric. Gardeners who've dealt with squirrels for years reach for something like half-inch hardware cloth, shaped into a fully closed cage around the fruit cluster. Leave any gap and a squirrel will find it, so close every seam. It costs a Saturday afternoon to build, once, and you're not out there rebagging the same tree every other week. Save the organza for spots where birds are the only real problem. One trade-off worth knowing. Wire mesh takes more time to set up than a bag you just slip over a branch. And the wider weave lets small insects through that fine organza would have kept out. Match the barrier to the pest you actually have, instead of reaching for the same fix out of habit. Birds peck, squirrels pull, cloth stops one of those, wire stops both. Mistake number 4, 10 minutes of water every night. It keeps roots stuck in the hottest few inches of soil. A neighbor of mine runs the hose on his beds every single evening in August. 10 minutes, like clockwork. His plants still wilt by 2 in the afternoon. He tells me he waters religiously. He is right. That is the problem. If that sounds like your own routine, mistake number 4 is hiding in that 10-minute habit. Here's what's actually happening in your soil. Roots do not follow a schedule, they follow moisture. Water the same top few inches every evening, and your roots stay right there, camped out in the top few inches that bake hardest under an August sun and dry out fastest once the sun goes down. Water deep instead, and roots have no choice but to chase that moisture further down, into ground that stays cooler and holds it longer between soakings. Shallow roots panic the second the top inch dries. Deep roots barely notice a hot afternoon. So soak deep, check the soil at root depth, and water again only when it starts to dry there, usually 2 or 3 times a week in a hot stretch. 10 minutes of surface water every night is training roots to live somewhere they cannot survive an afternoon. Aim for 8 to 12 inches down, 2 or 3 times a week, instead of a light splash every evening. Push a finger or a wooden stake into the soil after you water, well past the surface, down where the moisture actually needs to be. If it goes in dry past the first couple inches, you have not gone deep enough yet, no matter how long the hose was running. One exception worth knowing. Containers hold far less soil than a garden bed, so pots still need more frequent watering, even with this rule in place. A raised bed splits the difference. Somewhere between the two. Water deep enough, and the roots go looking for it. Water shallow, and they just wait by the door. Number 5 on this list is the one that fooled me for 2 whole summers, and it wasn't even close to what I thought it was. Mistake number 5, the disease that was just heat. No spray fixes a thermometer problem. For 2 summers, I checked that squash plant every single morning, sure something was eating the flowers before they could turn into fruit. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't a disease. It was the thermometer. I walked out there before coffee, both years, looking for chewed petals or some telltale spot on the leaves. Never found either one. Just flower after flower, opening yellow and full one morning, shriveled and gone by the next. Mistake number 5 doesn't look like a mistake at all. It looks like disease. And that is exactly what sends people to the garden center for the wrong bottle. I was reading a University of Maryland extension paper one afternoon and hit a sentence that stopped me cold. It said your tomato flowers only stay viable for about 50 hours after they open. A narrow window to get pollinated before the plant gives up on that bloom entirely. Once your days climb past 90 degrees and your nights refuse to drop below the low 70s for several days running, the pollen inside that flower turns sticky and clumps together. Your flower was never sick a single day. It was cooked before it ever had a chance to become fruit. On squash and zucchini, that same heat tilts the whole plant toward producing far more male flowers than female ones. So you get a yard full of yellow blooms and almost nothing to show for it. And it looks exactly like a pollination problem or a hidden disease. Gardeners spend real money on fungicide for a plant that was never sick to begin with, treating a thermometer reading like it needed a bottle off the shelf. This fixes itself. No spray required. Once the nights settle back down under about 75 degrees, new flowers start setting fruit again within a week or two. No different from before the heat wave hit. One thing to know before you panic: this only applies to sustained heat, several days and nights in a row. One hot afternoon followed by a cool evening will not do this to your plants. No fungicide fixes a thermometer problem. If that thermometer mistake just saved you from buying a bottle of fungicide you never needed, subscribe and hit the bell. There's a new one of these every week, and they don't cost you a dime to watch. Mistake number 6. Trusting the days to maturity number. Fall's shorter days quietly add weeks. The same cucumber that took 9 weeks in June will take longer than that right now, and most people never adjust for it. Mistake number 6 hides in a number you already trust: the days to maturity on the seed packet. Here's what's actually happening. That number was clocked under long June days, full sun stacking on top of itself, the plant racing to grow. Run the same clock in September, and the days get shorter one by one. Less light every day means slower growth every day. The packet has no idea it is lying to you. I ran the numbers on this, and padding the count is the fix. Old-timers just call it the fall factor. Take your first frost date. Subtract the days to maturity on the packet. Subtract another 14 days on top of that. Whatever is left is your real deadline, not the one printed on the packet. A 68-day cucumber, with a first frost around October 10th, needs a planting deadline back around early July, not late July like the packet math alone would suggest. Miss that window by even a week or two, and your whole last round of plantings can run out of season before it ever finishes. Green fruit still hanging when the first frost hits. Your frost date is local, sometimes different block to block. Look up your own, not a date from 3 towns over. Spring forgives a late start, fall does not. Mistake number 7. The seed tray still sitting empty. The deadline may already be behind you. Direct seeded fall crops still have some room this month. Transplant crops like broccoli and cabbage may already be behind, and most people don't realize the clock on those started weeks ago. Picture that empty seed tray still sitting on your kitchen counter, clean, unused, waiting for a Saturday that keeps slipping past. August is already more than half gone, and the tray has not moved. Mistake number 7 is a clock most people don't know is already running. Everyone talks about the first frost date. Almost nobody adds in the weeks a seedling already spent living in a tray before it even reached your garden. A carrot or a radish starts its clock the moment the seed touches soil outside. A broccoli or cabbage seedling does not. It has already spent 3, 4, 5 weeks alive indoors under a grow light, using up part of its life before you ever moved it outside. The days to maturity on that seed packet only count from the moment it lands in the ground, not from the moment the seed first cracked open in a tray. Skip that accounting, and you are already behind before you even notice. Still thinking in terms of the wrong starting line. For transplant crops, the math shifts. Take your first frost date. Subtract the days to maturity, subtract 10 more days of buffer on top of that. Whatever is left is your deadline to get the seedling into the ground, not the deadline to start the seed. 2 different countdowns, and mixing them up is exactly how a garden ends up half a month behind without anyone noticing. Pac-Man broccoli runs about 50 days to maturity. In a zone with a frost date around October 20th, that math lands your transplant deadline around August 21st. And the seed itself needed to go into a tray 4 to 6 weeks before that date, back in July, whether you remembered to start it or not. This urgency mostly hits the transplant crops, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, the ones that spend real time in a tray first. Carrots, beets, lettuce, and radish skip the tray entirely and go straight into soil. So they still have real room to spare even now. The carrots can wait another week. The broccoli already couldn't. 7 mistakes, and every one of them looked harmless from a distance. A cracked tomato, a few dropped flowers, a bag that seemed like it should work. None of them look like the reason your harvest came up short until you know what to look for. One more thing before we wrap up. A tomato with just a shallow ring crack at the shoulder, one that hasn't split open to the flesh, is still fine to eat tonight. Cut around it and use it. Save the deep, oozing splits for the compost pile, not the counter. So here's what to do next. Tonight, before the light goes, walk out to your 3 closest fruiting plants and clear every cracked or dropped fruit in a 3-foot circle around the base. Don't kick them under the mulch, pick them up. Salvage the ones that are still good by the rule above and trash the rest. August doesn't ruin a harvest all at once. It does it 3 feet at a time, in the spots nobody's looking.